Welcome to the 41st International Visual Sociology Association Annual Conference, titled Visual Accountability Show Don't Tell. This year, the conference is held as part of the celebrations for the 80th anniversary of the foundation of the Universidad Veracruzana. The 2024 IVSA conference delves into the concept of visual accountability, which encompasses visually mediated practices of regulation and control. The role of digital images in shaping perceptions of truth has become increasingly significant in our digital age, especially with the accelerated impact of the COVID-19 pandemic and the rise of artificial intelligence technologies. The 41st IVSA Annual Conference features a diverse array of activities: workshops, tours, virtual sessions, keynotes, panel discussions, exhibitions, and interactive activities, fostering an environment for academic exchange, innovation, and practical learning. This event is made possible through the collaboration of prominent institutions worldwide. We are honored that IVSA has chosen our institution to host this conference. The Universidad Veracruzana proudly serves 5 regions: Jalapa, Orizaba, Córdoba, Veracruz, Boca del Rio, Poza Rica, Tuxpan, and Coatzacoalcos, Minatitlan. Through the Universidad Veracruzana Intercultural, we extend our reach to the regions of Grandes Montañas, Selvas, Huasteca, and Totonacapan. We serve more than 80,000 students through 365 educational programs spanning technical, undergraduate, and graduate levels, along with an extensive array of non-formal programs. We take pride in our community's contributions in academia, art, culture, sports, research, and social outreach. Each school, research center, and artistic group strengthens our mission to train qualified professionals who are ethically committed and possess a humanistic perspective, capable of addressing complex global, national, and regional challenges, to preserve, revalue, and disseminate art and culture, and to extend scientific and technological knowledge. Thank you for joining this year's conference. We hope it provides an enriching environment for dialogue and learning for all. Lista Veracruz, Art, Science, Light, Universidad Veracruzana.
We are so happy to be here today at the Museo Antropológico de la Veracruz. Let me put on my glasses so I can see. In its 80th year anniversary, a university that has hosted prominent thinkers like Paulo Freire and Edward Said. There's so much to do and so much to say in these times of interlocking crises that we inhabit, of which we're all acutely sensitive and we wish to address in the ways that we can. It amazes me to think that 20 years ago, Liz and I were doctoral students together at the University of Alberta, sharing a small office with one other student, 3 walls, 3 desks, a door, no windows. For years, who would have imagined we would end up working in different universities and collaborating on the project that led to the theme of this conference? As I scan the audience, I see familiar faces, the faces of those with whom I've crossed paths and with which I've ended up thinking, creating, and writing together. It's events such as these that bring us together, where we can share and celebrate our work, renew our connections to each other, and create new ones. We take nourishment and energy to face the challenges to come. As such, we remember at this time our colleagues who have been silenced, lost their positions, or have disappeared, especially in Palestine, because they have dared to speak for peace in time of war, for justice in the face of wrongful conduct, dared to speak of ethics and responsibility in situations of corruption and unanswerability. We hold space for them and continue to not only engage in scholarly, artistic forms of knowledge mobilization, but also in socially engaged and committed practice that impacts our world.
Gracias, doctora Carolina. Antes de continuar, les quiero recordar que hay una aplicación de celular. Los voluntarios dieron el código QR para escanear. Si necesitan traducción, vamos a estar alternando entre inglés y español. Pero bueno, continuando con el programa, pues quiero externar ante ustedes que estamos muy contentos de que lo hayan logrado. Sabemos que la participación en este congreso ha representado un gran esfuerzo para todos los participantes. Sabemos que hay gente que viajó hasta 30 horas de vuelo, de autobuses, de trayecto, para llegar al destino final, que es Jalapa, nuestra Universidad Veracruzana. Será un congreso muy productivo, de muchos aprendizajes y de vivencias inolvidables. Les tocó venir en época de lluvia, pues fueron afortunados que en el viaje a la finca esta mañana tuvieran un poco de sol. Viendo que ya está todo el mundo integrado aquí al auditorio, me gustaría presentarles a las personas que nos acompañan en el presidium el día de hoy. Tenemos un presidium de lujo. En el lado izquierdo nos acompaña el doctor Alfredo Delgado, director del Museo de Antropología. Un aplauso para él, por favor. A quien también aprovechamos para dar el agradecimiento por habernos brindado pues la apertura del museo para que ustedes lo pudieran visitar. Después, al lado de él está nuestro querido doctor Juan Ortiz Escamilla, el secretario académico de la Universidad Veracruzana, quien aparte de venir como secretario académico, el día de hoy también viene en representación del rector de la Universidad Veracruzana. Un aplauso para él, por favor. Enseguida tenemos a la doctora Susan Hensen, quien nos acompaña de la Universidad de London. Un aplauso para ella, por favor. Sí, la doctora Susan es vicepresidenta del IVSA. Y bueno, a su lado está con nosotros el doctor Greg Scott, quien es el presidente del IVSA y a quien damos un fuerte aplauso también. Además de los invitados en nuestro presidium, nos acompañan de parte de la Universidad Veracruzana autoridades educativas, directores generales de áreas y directores de diferentes instancias de la Universidad Veracruzana, a quienes pido si se pueden poner de pie para saludar a la audiencia, por favor. De igual forma nos acompaña el doctor Gerardo Gómez Salas, director de la Benemérita Escuela Normal Veracruzana Enrique Cebre Repsamen. Y nos acompaña también el doctor Edgar Eduardo Ruiz Cervantes, director de Educación del H Ayuntamiento de Jalapa. De igual forma y en representación del licenciado Josué Vázquez González, director de Turismo Municipal, nos acompaña la licenciada Isabel Apodaca Hobart. Y bueno, también como invitado especial que va a estar compartiéndonos una ponencia el día sábado, nos acompaña el doctor Remigio Valdés Hoyos, director cultural del espacio del Consulado en Montreal, del Consulado de México en Montreal.
Pero ahora lo presentamos a Greg, no yo. We'd now like to invite the president of the IVSA to welcome you.
Not so fast, I haven't earned that. Buenos dias. Good morning. Are you with me? Are you here? Just checking. Big thanks to Cece and Liz and the entire team, and I want to give special thanks to all the students who are here. They're helping us in ways we didn't even know we needed help, and you're awesome, so thank you. Also, thanks to the board of directors of the IVSA. If you're here, would you please just stand up? So, board members, Julie, Patron-Josek, Sabina, please stand up. So if you, yes, thank you to the board. Susan, If you're, during the conference, you have any questions about the organization, about how we do things, how we don't do things, please seek out any one of us and engage us in that conversation. How many of you are here for the first time? You're in an IVSA conference for the first time. Wow, okay, excellent. How many of us are sociologists? Okay, not even half. Anthropologists, historians, economists, designers, architects, artists, filmmakers. Ah, what diversity. Here we are all, visualistas. Despite our methodological stripe differences and our varying theoretical frames, we're here with a central commitment, a common commitment. And we're interested in how visuality shapes and is shaped by the world in which we live. We share this commitment to producing and consuming and challenging and sometimes trying to undermine knowledge. That's one of the reasons we're here. And we're interested specifically in knowledge about the behavior of imagery in social life, how images behave in the social world, what they do and what they don't do, and when and how and where and why they do what they do. We're here together despite our differences because we tend to see the social in everything and to envision our questions about reality, and we strive to appreciate the role of visuality in the social organization of meaning. We conceptualize visually. We work within the image medium, and we often communicate what we've learned through a framework of visuality. Finally, and perhaps most important, I think, we generally share a typically unspoken philosophy that all of social life is accountable to the image. And likewise, the image is always accountable to social life. So with those few words, I want to say again, welcome, visualistas, to the 2024 Conference of the International Visual Sociology Association. Let's have fun. The conference team has organized what promises to be a terrific experience. Of course, there will be problems, there will be issues, there have been snafus and glitches, and there will continue to be those snafus and glitches. In fact, we have chosen as a team to make sure that we do enough experimentation that unexpected and frustrating outcomes occur. Not that we want frustrating and unexpected outcomes to occur, but because you just can't try this many new things and expect everything to go perfectly. We believe in making new mistakes. So we try to make new mistakes every single year. So join us on this wild ride of new mistakes, new adventures, new horizons of knowledge as we interrogate the role and the behavior of the image in everyday life. And I trust that along the way, these next few days, we will all exercise grace and compassion as we encounter our bumps in the road, and that we practice some of the fundamental tenets of our life as an organization. Those tenets are curiosity, compassion, kindness, and joy. So let's all try to embody these as we move forward together. One quick note of administration. On Saturday, you'll see in the agenda AGM. That's because I said, hey, we need an AGM on Saturday. So it went into the agenda as AGM. That is the annual general meeting. So that is a time when all of the members meet with the board members, and we provide a box lunch. So I apologize for not making that clear to you. I look forward to seeing you throughout the conference and again on Saturday when we meet all together. Thank you.
Bien, pues miren, para continuar con nuestro programa, ahora voy a ceder el uso de la voz a nuestro secretario académico, no sin antes agradecer su importante rol en la realización de este evento. Como ustedes saben, la Universidad Veracruzana es anfitriona de este evento. La asociación ha viajado por 40 países y en su versión número 41 se eligió a México como país sede y a Jalapa como ciudad y además a la Universidad Veracruzana como anfitriona. Esto no habría sido posible si no nos hubieran abierto las puertas de parte de la Universidad Veracruzana. Le agradecemos, doctor Juan Escamilla, y le pedimos muy amablemente que haga llegar nuestras palabras de gratitud al rector de la universidad. Gracias.
Muy buenas tardes para todas y todos los presentes. Reciban un cálido y fraternal saludo del doctor Martín Gerardo Aguilar Sánchez, rector de nuestra universidad, quien me ha solicitado compartirle su beneplácito por la oportunidad de que nuestra institución y esta ciudad de Jalapa sea sede del 41º Congreso de la Asociación Internacional de Sociología Visual IVSA 2024, sinónimo de espacio libre que posibilita el discurso intelectual y abierto acerca de la representación visual de la sociedad y la cultura, con profundo respeto a los derechos humanos, la dignidad y la diversidad de toda la humanidad, organizaciones y comunidades representadas, que son algunos de los valores que comparte y promueve la administración encabezada por nuestro rector a través del programa de trabajo 2021-2025 por una transformación integral. Sabemos que IVSA es una organización profesional sin fines de lucro, democrática y con orientación académica dedicada al estudio visual de la sociedad, la cultura y las relaciones sociales, que promueve el estudio, la producción y uso de imágenes, datos visuales y materiales orientados visualmente a la enseñanza de la investigación y las actividades aplicadas, y que a través de sus publicaciones y actividades, programas apoyan el avance teórico y metodológico de la sociología visual, campos afines como una forma de examinar y comprender el mundo. Por ello, nos congratulamos de que la Universidad Veracruzana sea sede de este evento dedicado a explorar el concepto de contabilidad visual, muéstralo, no lo cuentes, mismo que subraya con énfasis la necesidad de examinar el rol de la imagen digital en nuestra comprensión del mundo. Organizar este congreso representa una oportunidad excepcional para mostrar nuestro compromiso con la excelencia académica. Agradecemos, por tanto, a IVSA por elegirnos como sede. Celebramos la presencia del doctor Greg Scott, presidente de IVSA, de la vicepresidenta Susana Hansen, del doctor Alfredo Delgado, por supuesto de nuestra querida Elizabeth Ocampo, por todo el trabajo que han venido realizando. Bienvenidas y bienvenidos sean todos a este espacio que hoy es posible compartir de libertad de expresión y de diálogos globales sobre cuestiones fundamentales que afectan a nuestra sociedad actual. Ahora, si me permiten, voy a hacer la declaratoria formal de este evento. Es un honor para el secretario académico con la representación del rector de la Universidad Veracruzana, siendo las 18:28 del miércoles 26 de junio de 2024, declarar formalmente inaugurados el 41º Congreso de la Asociación Internacional de Sociología Visual. Enhorabuena, bienvenidos, bienvenidas. Gracias.
Lo bueno es que tenemos más que 28 países representados y más que 40 universidades, así que esperamos tener un tiempo de colaboración e intercambio muy rico. Pero antes de eso tenemos que tomar un momento. We're going to take a moment to bid farewell to the university authorities so that they can continue their workday and we can remove the stage. So let's give them a hand as they go and then we'll remove the stage. You can go down. Everybody can go off the stage and relax.
Sí, de igual forma nos dijeron los organizadores que iban a mover la mesa para que la doctora pudiera...
Imágenes en la gobernanza de la migración a cargo de la doctora Alice Massari de la Universidad de Copenhague y el CERC, Cátedra de Investigación de Excelencia de Canadá en el Programa de Migración e Integración Toronto Metropolitan University. She holds an MA in International Relations, a PhD in Political Science, European Politics, and International Relations. She recently published a book, Visual Securitization, Humanitarian Representations and Migration Governance. She has worked in the humanitarian sector since 2007 as a researcher, aid worker, and consultant. Over the years, she has worked in the Humanitarian Affairs Officer for the UK Foreign Commission, as well as an aid worker in Africa and the Middle East. Her research and writing focus on migration, humanitarianism, visuality, and securitization. In particular, I'd like to highlight this book that I just mentioned as part of the IMISCO research series, which represents the International Migration Network, which is the largest interdisciplinary network of scholars in the field of migration. I feel like the microphone's talking back to me. Massari's book about the politics of visualizing refugee crises is an important and rigorously researched book that provides both practical relevance for policymakers at the same time as advancing scholarly thought and theory in this interdisciplinary area. Therein, she provides an innovative account of how relief organizations' visual depictions of Syrian displacement contributes to reproducing and reinforcing a securitized account of refugees. And she uses visual analysis to show how securitization processes take place. A great fit for our theme of show, don't tell. And so I invite you all now to welcome Dr. Alice Massari.
Thank you and good evening. First of all, thank you so much for inviting me. I feel really honored, and I promise I won't be too long, as I know I stand between us and the reception. I had a presentation. I don't know how it works. Yeah. Can I move it or? Sí? Okay.
We're going to move the curtain back here so that there's a big screen to show the slides. Sorry about that. The TVs are great, but that would be better.
Pero aquí en un esquema para que no estorben la proyección. ¿Y este cómo se ve?
Ay, qué rico se siente aquí.
Ya puede abrir, seguro.
So I hope you can see, yes, I hope you can see the presentation there as well. I'm gonna start, so shall I wait? I think. So, as the adage goes, a picture is worth 1,000 words. Images have become usual, if not essential, elements of communication on practically every issue. Topics of global relevance, in particular, have been represented by a wide array of images. Next slide, please. Like photos of overcrowded migrant boats, starving polar bears on melting glaciers, and infographics showing the COVID-19 mortality rates have gone viral. Visuality has assumed even more relevance in contemporary world, where social media, heavily based on images, are widely used, both to reproduce content and as source of information. Although we are still missing an overarching analytical framework, it has become increasingly evident that by looking at the images produced by the different actors of international arena, we could be able to shed light on certain dynamics of international politics. This is particularly true in the realm of migration, a topic that has dominated contemporary visual landscape and policy debate for decades now. Indeed, the communicative space in which very different actors have posted and discussed about migration issues has been particularly active over the last years. We probably all remember the massive focus of digital and social media on the so-called 2015 European refugee crisis, or the 2018 US administration campaign against the migrant caravan and the intention to expand the Mexico-United States barrier further, or more recently, Biden's asylum restrictions. Within this articulated digital sphere, images of all kinds, pictures, videos, meme, infographic, maps have taken the lion's share. Some of the images, probably more impactfully than 1,000 words written on the topic over the years, indeed became iconic representation of contemporary mobility, such as the aerial photo. It was a few slides back, both. The second slide. such as the aerial photo of the boat crowded with migrants in the middle of the Mediterranean Sea, published by Time in 2014. Or the dramatic picture of the lifeless body of Alan Kurdi on the shore. Others sparkle strong emotional responses and debates, such as, for example, the images disseminated by TikTok on people crossing the Darien Gap. At the same time, it is also important to acknowledge how the communication landscape has changed radically over the last years, and how the new digital communication sphere has allowed for the emergence of new actors, especially highlighting the relevance of individuals, influencers, and small groups of people in global debates. This is important because the ways in which actors of migration governance frame the ideational context in which international mobility is perceived becomes crucial to shed light on how the international politics of migration is approached. I would like to argue in particular that images play a key role in this process, and I would like to present a framework that enables images to come into analytical view. First of all, this is a theoretical framework that enables us to consider the different relevant layers of governance, not only policies, practices, regulations, but also representations. Second, this theoretical framework enables us to include in the analysis all the relevant actors, the traditional one, but also the ones whose participation has been so far excluded or marginalized. In this sense, not only institutions and organizations, actors at the macro and meso level, but also individuals acting at the micro level should be included in the analysis. Finally, the proposed theoretical framework is based on the understanding that the role of images in migration governance should be thought of on the basis of an iterative approach between the images and the governance realm. If you allow me, I will start with a brief overview of where we are in the study of the connection between images and world politics in my particular field, international relations. I will proceed with a brief discussion of the digital public sphere and what it does in terms of possibilities and openness to new actors. I will then present how all this relates to the governance of global challenges, and in particular with that of migration, and how I suggest to connect the dots by introducing the concept of visual migration governance, which I define as the enactment through visual representations, such as images, videos, maps, and other visual media, to communicate, regulate, legitimize, or contest prevailing power structures, policies, and practices. Next slide, please. Yeah. International relations studies have since long time been intrigued by the idea that images could play some role in international politics. In '96, Strobel advanced the idea that visual representation of conflict and suffering happening in distant countries did help foreign policy officials explain the need for US intervention. He argued that by focusing the attention to one crisis, the famine in Somalia in 1992, over another one, the conflict in southern Sudan, the CNN played a key role in dictating US foreign agenda. Later on, Robinson redefined the impact of the CNN effect, showing that although it was unclear whether or not the news media have triggered military intervention, media influence on government policy was possible only when policy was still uncertain, and media coverage clearly framed a situation advocating for a specific course of action. Although scholars are still discussing the dynamics of the interaction of images in world politics, little doubt remains on the fact that visual representation do play a role in the international arena. Blaker's seminal article on the aesthetic turn showed how exploration of representative practice could broaden our comprehension of international politics, and the difference between what images represented and the subject of representation was the very location of politics. Since then, international studies have increasingly extended their attention to the visual world, with the increased prominence that the topic of migration has acquired over the last decades. A growing body of scholarship has started focusing on the study of how specific visual representation of displacement contributed to shaping the public understanding of migration dynamics. However, despite extremely important contributions, the role of images in the broader context of governance dynamics, especially in the realm of migration governance, remains largely under-theorized. And before going back to migration governance, let's now for a moment consider the contemporary communication landscape. Next slide, please. Obviously, the communicative sphere in which we live today is radically changed compared to the media landscape that existed when scholars were writing about the CNN effect. Internet, the emergence of social media, and the accessibility of digital technologies have given a whole new role and potential to images, given how easy it is to take pictures and circulate them. The main implication of this new communicative system is that it's based on a very rapid circulation of a large amount of visual material, and it is potentially open to bottom-up approaches of actors and influencers at the individual level. The digital public sphere pushes us to rethink the way we approach the study of governance and advance a theoretical framework able to consider and include in the analysis new actors situated at the micro level that are now able to participate to the public debate and therefore contribute to influence the governance dynamics. A digital public sphere is defined as a communicative sphere provided or supported online, where participation is open and freely available to everyone. One of the most widely acknowledged advantages of the digital sphere, as opposed to the traditional one, made of newspaper and magazines, radio and television, it is the potential openness to a variety of actors. In other words, online media enable a wide array of voices to be heard. Schaeffer illustrates this by distinguishing features of the digital public sphere being open to different stakeholders by noting how content can be easily posted online without the need of intermediaries or gatekeepers, such as journalists in traditional media environment. Thanks to this feature, the digital public sphere has the potential to empower those that have been mostly marginalized or altogether excluded by the public debate. Government institutions, traditionally the main protagonist of the public sphere, are key actors of the digital sphere as well. And starting from the mid-2000s, also international organizations and non-governmental organizations began creating social media accounts to interact with the public and government. Social media enabled these organizations to engage with millions of supporters or potential supporters globally, as well as directly target key decision makers as part of their advocacy activities. The European Director of Human Rights Watch, Andrew Strollheim, clearly illustrated this new sphere of opportunity, outlining the crucial role played by Twitter in three key components of the organization mandate: investigate, expose, and change. However, what I believe has been one of the most intriguing developments brought about by the integration of the digital technologies and social media into the public sphere has been the increased participation of individuals who were previously considered merely the audience of traditional media. By increasing the possibility of government engagement with international politics, both to obtain information on what was going on in other parts of the world, and most importantly, allowing direct access to the public debate, digital technologies have deeply transformed the public sphere. Social media have undeniably increased citizens' sphere of action. For example, while commentators have rightly noted that the uprising in the Middle East and North Africa in the early 2010s were primarily people's movement, it is notable that the Egyptian revolution and the Syrian uprising in 2011 have been associated with Facebook and YouTube, respectively. Although the events in Egypt and Syria were driven by national movement influenced by the unique political, media, and security context in each country, it is now evident that the social media played a crucial role in the circulation of information and the facilitation of people engagement. Given the radically new feature of today's communicative sphere, this paper advances the need for a theoretical framework to think about governance that could include all relevant actors, not only the traditional ones located at the macro and meso level, but also the ones at the micro level. And if we can go to the next slide, I'm going to show you a few pictures that give you the idea of the variety of perspective and therefore the different kind of representation. Next slide, please. This one, for instance, is an image published by Frontex, which is the EU agency in charge of the control of external borders. Next slide, please. This is a picture of the Darien Gap taken by the media. Next slide. These are two pictures of international NGO campaign on displacement and conflict. Next slide. This is again, well, a typical picture of INGOs. Next slide, please. This is part of an artistic work of Khaled Ourani, a Palestinian artist that uses the blue figure, which is the way in which UNHCR, the UN agency for refugees, depict refugees, and they are all depicted the same in this blue figure. Next slide, please. This is an artist that displays his work on Instagram, Solo Explico con Plastilina, representing migrants in the desert. Next slide, please. And this is probably the most famous work of Bruno Catalano on migrants and invisibility. Next one, please. And this is the last. And this is a video on TikTok of the service providers of irregular migration, human smugglers, because also the images, there's many images online from a variety of actors that we usually don't think of. And next slide, please. So to understand the relevance of how all these different pictures produced and disseminated by different actors. How is this empowering and inclusive feature of governance? Let me briefly explain my definition of migration governance that draws upon Rusno's definition of a system of rule with transnational implication and uses Barnett and Duval emphasis on productive power. Therefore, I define global migration governance as the constellation of policies, practices, and representation, of course also textual, but what we are interested here, visual, to contribute to the management of international mobility. In most account of governance, there is little debate that in addition to state-level institution and state-sponsored transnational institution, non-governmental organization needs to be considered a key actor. What is probably still open to debate is whether individuals, or better to say some forms of individual expression, could also play a role in governance. Some studies have highlighted the possibilities of non-elite engaging in horizontal or bottom-up securitization processes, and the increased crucial role that eyewitness videos play to engage in politicization and securitization of issues, following the widespread use of smartphones and social media. At the same time, in recent years, visual evidence and users-generated content has increasingly become an important aspect of advocacy, has been used in investigation on human rights abuses and war crimes, and has influenced the conversation about the police racist brutality in the US. Scholars have started to study the role of individuals and influencers in affecting policy change in the realm of politics, media coverage, health, climate change, marketing, and agriculture, among others. When reflecting over migration governance, it is quite important to remember, as Beth suggests, the importance to look at what configuration of interest, power, and ideas has led to the existing regulatory framework and what determines the international politics of each area of migration. While interest and power play a quite self-evident role in governance, I would like to focus on the value of ideas. In order to be able to study how ideas shape migration governance, and in particular how images shape the idea, which in turn shape migration governance, I propose a framework able to look not only at the set of regulation and practices, but also at the representation that influence the idea, the discourse. Let me now show you how the theoretical framework outlined above could be applied. I will do that through the analysis of 3 videos produced by actors of migration governance located at different levels, namely Frontex, the EU agency in charge of supporting member states in the management of EU external borders, the international non-governmental organization SOS Méditerranée, a European network composed of associations in Italy, Germany, France, and Switzerland that supports sea rescues, operation, and advocacy activities across the Mediterranean, so the meso level, and Vie des Migrants, a TikTok account with videos visualized by millions of people. The 3 videos have been selected for their relevance within the context of the Mediterranean migration governance, as videos showcasing the various actors, and also because of the very high visualization rates. The first video has been published by Frontex in 2019, and under the title Frontex detects mother boat smuggling people, and has been visualized by 230,000 people so far. Can we go to the next slide and play the video, please? There's a play button on the video. No, back, yeah. And there's a play button at the bottom of the slide. Doesn't work? Can you try to push the play button? If it doesn't work, no problem, but it's nicer to show rather than tell you exactly. Yeah. It's probably not. I'll describe what you would have seen. I'm sorry. As you can imagine, it's an aerial shot of a main boat trying going toward another boat where they disembark people that are described as people smugglers. And the visual narrative closely aligns with mainstream narrative of migration governance that frame migration in terms of threat and therefore migration management as a necessary security reaction. By utilizing aerial view and a documentary style approach, and included in the scene visual clues such as the gun sight viewfinder, it underscores the perceived necessity for surveillance and intervention to face migration challenges. Showing off a neutral stance and refraining from direct engagement with migrants, the institution reinforces a narrative of supposed objectivity and impartiality in global governance. The incorporation of technical science and the prominent display of the Frontex logo reinforces the institution's assertion of authority and expertise in border control and migration management. This representation aligns with mainstream narratives that emphasize the importance of technological solutions and institutional frameworks in addressing international mobility. The government institution self-portrait as a vigilant observer and authoritative documenter of migration activities not only aligns but reinforces this securitized account. The next video, we will not be able to see, unfortunately. It's next slide, by the way, but yeah. Has been published by SOS Méditerranée in 2022 and is titled Rotation 12 on board of the Ocean Viking Rescue 01. And the time of writing has been visualized 697,000 times. The video published by the NGO offers a perspective that aims at challenging mainstream narratives of migration governance. The semiotic resources at play in the video foster a representation that challenges traditional hierarchical norms between the viewer and the migrants. By featuring close-up shots and frontal perspective of rescued individuals, the video fosters a sense of social proximity and connection between the viewer and the depicted migrants. Subverting established social dynamics that often position migrants lower on the social scale, the video emphasizes the humanitarian aspect of migration. The natural sound and unobtrusive editing style further contribute to the video's strong claim of truth about its authenticity. However, this account does not only or not completely challenges mainstream representation of migration, it also, at the same time, inherently securitizes it, as end up framing the people on the move mostly as passive victims in need of external intervention. And this confirms the studies that have highlighted how humanitarian and securitizing discourses can easily coexist. The third video has been posted by an individual account named Vie des Migrants on TikTok in 2023. This account posts viral videos of sea crossing and irregularized disembarkment in Europe, and has since then received 5 million visualizations, so many more than more institutional organizations. And this account is followed by over 200,000 people. The third video and last one, which I wanted to show, you would have seen a fixed camera conveying a sense of stability and authority, and the medium, distant, and oblique point of view underlying a clear social disconnection between the viewer and the represented subjects that may reinforce narrative of social distance and otherness, reflecting broader mainstream discourses on migration. Despite the caption #MigrantLife, seemingly intending to introduce a critical lens and highlight the human experience behind migrants' arrivals, potentially challenging simplistic or sensationalized representation of migration, the video does not fully uphold its ambition. Similarly, the thumbs up icon, resembling social media like button, prompts viewer to engage with the content, but its rapid movement and placement in the frame suggests a superficial or commodified response to the migration experience. The overpowering pop song drawing out the natural sound of human voices has the effect of augmenting the feeling of disconnection, as the music gives the impression of a light-hearted holiday atmosphere, as if the events unfolding were merely a backdrop for leisure and relaxation, rather than the account of what in mainstream media is the epiphenomenon of a crisis. The atmosphere created by the video song, which resonates more with social media romantic and nostalgic accounts of holiday trips, adds complexity to what is visually represented. One of the memorable moments of a trip, rather than the moment symbol of a criminalized activity. The incorporation of social media elements like interactive thumbs-up icons, typical of social media consumption patterns, introduce a new visual element which, however, does not directly reinforces or challenges mainstream accounts of migration, but rather disrupts it and includes it in a different communication landscape. Rather than simply reinforcing or challenging mainstream narratives, the video complicates them, inserting them into a clickbait logic, which on one side connects it to the glamorous videos of social media influencers, and on the other represents sea arrivals in quite distant and impersonal way. Now, let's connect all the dots of what I've been saying so far. Once one acknowledges the role that ideas and meaning constructions have in the shaping of governance, can you go to the last slide, please? Last slide, please. Next one. Yes. Once one acknowledges the role that ideas and meaning construction have in the shaping of governance, it becomes clear how the investigation of the various discourses that contribute to the shaping of those meaning and ideas are equally important. It becomes therefore evident as well how crucial it is an approach that allows to reflect over governance, not only considering policies, rules, and practices, but also discourses and representations, and particularly, I would like to argue, visual representations. In order to do so, I suggest that to understand how the international politics of migration is approached, is indeed important to include the study of images produced by the different actors that, with different capacities, participate to it. As we have seen above, also actors situated at the micro level do play a role in the way certain issues are approached. I suggest applying the same reasoning to the realm of migration governance and look at the ways in which images produced by actors at the macro, meso, and micro level, thanks to their instant and wide circulation, contribute to the iteration between the discourse of migration and migration governance. Before going any further, however, it is important to disentangle the complex relationship between images and governance. It's crucial to consider that this is an iterative approach between the images on one side and the governance system on the other. On one hand, images contribute to governance by their key role in shaping public debate and discourses. All different actors of the digital public sphere, they all contribute, although with different degrees of power, to the creation of discourse, as we will see, I imagine, through the discussion in the next following days. What is fundamental here is that when images depicting migration are circulated, they contribute to forming public opinions and narratives, which in turn shape discourses around migration. This creates new images that feed back into the public discourse, perpetuating the cycle. This process involves an iterative cycle where visual representation serves both as input into the governance system and as output that function as governance tools. As input, visual representation constitute key elements that create meaning within the governance system. Images, videos, and maps depicting migration events, conditions, and experiences influence the perception and therefore the discourse. These visual inputs contribute to the shaping of narrative and opinions about migration, which in turn affect the formulation of policies and governance strategies. As output, visual representation is strategically employed by all governance actors to enact, communicate, and legitimize their respective agendas. This iterative process in which images serve both as means of meaning creation and governance tool could mislead us toward a sort of cognitive immobility, stuck into the chicken or egg dilemma. Should images be approached as governance tools, intended as part of the instruments that policymakers can utilize to steer actors towards specific policy outcomes? Or on the contrary, should images be considered for their ability to contribute to discourses on migration issues which shape governance policies? The difficulty of answering those questions lays in its false premises. The question of what comes first between images and governance is misleading, as the two are interconnected in an iterative process in which the latter shapes the former, while it is also shaped by it. To conclude, the features of today's public digital sphere suggest that while we look at the role of images in meaning creation, and therefore in migration governance, We need to include in the investigation the images produced by all different stakeholders, INGOs, influencers, citizens, migration service providers, criminal actors. Indeed, as the communication realm has become more open and inclusive, so should our explorative gaze. And the dynamics and processes I have outlined here in the particular field of international mobility could be explored in the context of many other very actual global challenges, such as climate change or the reproduction contestation of unequal socioeconomic regimes. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Alice. I went outside and down to the van where the people moving the slides are, the TV truck, and it seems that your videos didn't transfer with your show.
Could be because we send them from the coffee plantation, maybe internet.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
So we apologize. You know, the more sophisticated the technology gets, the more interesting. I'd like to open the floor now for questions for this incredible and interesting talk. And I think I'm going to kick it off with something that you made me think of after you were discussing the CNN effect. You talked about the fact that anyone can post now on social media. But what I've been thinking about lately, and I don't know if people have noticed, is this sort of effect of digital silencing, where you can post all you want, but nobody will see it. So for example, on Facebook, if you use the word Palestine, it won't be seen. So how does this fit into what you're theorizing?
This is a point I'm reflecting myself and I didn't find a solution. And I think there are statistics that say that basically there's the people who are silenced, the people who are marginal in the discourse constitute the 95% of the social media landscape, but this noise is the 95%. So it may very well be scattered and not united, but it's powerful because it constitutes the majority. And also in something that I noticed, all the accounts of institutions and big organizations are not followed as much as people that manage to become influencers. Then there are logics of the influencing on social media that escape what is important probably in the political debate. But I think there's the potentiality to open up and to increase the voice of people that usually were completely altogether excluded.
Thank you. We have some microphones to pass around. I see a hand here.
Oh, hello. Is it on? Am I on? Yay! Thank you so much for that. That was brilliant, and you described the videos so beautifully I could almost see them. You've talked about the actors involved in the production of images here, but unless I blinked, what role do you think AI plays? Have you looked at the role that the AI production of images in this sphere might represent? Do you have any thoughts on that?
I did not. But I very often in my work have been asked about fake images and what's their role, and I think it relates a little bit. And the point is that once they are disseminated, they contribute to the discourse, to shape the discourse as much as the real pictures. So the other ones. And so we can interrogate ourselves on the modes of production and what's behind it, but I think that what is most important at the end is always the meaning creation.
Yeah. I'm just curious as to how AI would participate in that and the sources it would be drawing upon, but we can talk about that later. Who's next? This was so brilliant. Come on. Yes, thank you very much.
Hi, Oh, now I get, hi. Oh. Oh, we stand up. Oh, cool. Thank you so much. I'm thinking a lot about a lot of things you said. I think this was brilliant. I'm a PhD student of communication, so a lot of what you said resonated with me and my work specifically. And I guess I'm curious about your thinking in regards to critical refugee studies literature and thinking about the representations of migrants as lacking agency, even when they are producing the content and sharing and circulating, how there are critics on the side of critical refugee studies of how much of the visual representation can actually kind of challenge their position as silence victims. Thank you.
Thank you. This is something I worked quite a lot in the past, and the only answer that I have is that it challenges misleading representation only when it's representation is a representation, but the people that experienced that journey, and therefore it shows the complexity and the facets that they want to show, and it's not very effective when it's mediated, as it usually is in humanitarian discourses.
Yeah, thank you very much. Listening to your talk, I thought of the theorization of empathy that was so relevant in the 1920s and 30s. A lot of seminal writings, and then it was conceived as something that is in the human consciousness and body, but the role of media was underestimated. I mean, documentary film, photography allows us to empathize with people that we have never met and that we will probably never meet. And my question is, do you see any use of the image in the context of migration that desensitizes? Because there's a dialectics between sensitizing but there's also a desensitizing. Can you say something about that?
I'm not sure, but my first answer would be that I think that we are becoming desensitized because of the normalization of what we are seeing. And it's not only on displacement, but it's on Palestine, it's on Sudan, it's on many situations on which, and we are not, images are not invoking empathy anymore, are just normalizing levels of violence or suffering that we could not think of. So I don't have an answer, but I will thank you for the question because I would think about more.
Yeah, thanks. Working? Yeah. Thanks for the presentation, very interesting. And later on I want to carry on talking about this because I mean it's similar kind of, I'm facing similar challenges of how to build some framework to think about these things. My question has to do with how you see the effects or the emotional dimension to this kind of analysis that you provided, given that it's not only one of the angles through which this visual politics analysis takes place, but also because it relates very much to what you were saying. I mean, this iteration between governance and representation, it depends at some level, somewhere, about what photos, what images do, not only what they represent, but what they do and what they do to whom. And that's also a very, I mean, the whom is a very important question as well, because I'm assuming that the kind of research you're explaining here refers to the European context in which discussions about migration or regulation policy on migration took place in cases you provided or other similar cases. But I mean, whether there's what images do in terms of what they generate, which connects to the previous question actually, whether they desensitize or not, or I mean, to what extent that connects to place, or to who, I mean, where are they relevant and in what space, in what context? I mean, that's big questions, but well, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. I think this is a very important point I didn't mention in my speech, but like I part from the assumption that all, like Bart says, that all images are polysemic. And of course, different readings are situated differently geographically, historically, etc. But there are some level of analysis that allow, I think, to when different types of readings overlap, then you know you have some clues that you are going toward one interpretation that is more reasonable than others. But of course, like, this is a very important point and absolutely important to keep in mind.
Thank you so much for your presentation. I'm just curious about a number of things because you've mentioned the whole sort of refugee representational aspect of it. But what about the platform studies aspect in the sense of the governmentality of the platforms themselves? How much they constrain, what they allow and disallow, how much they silence. That's one part of it. But the other part of it is also the notion that you can have this kind of battleground, a contestation of different sides, particularly in terms of the echo chambers that are created. So that's the other part of it that I wanted to sort of like ask you about, particularly around the refugee issues. And the third part kind of links up with what I've found in the work that I've done, which is that you can have the meso and micro levels of analysis, but in terms of pushing for social change and policy outcomes, it's the combination, that, as you've mentioned, but a lot of the meso level is occupied by NGOs and INGOs that often have a huge following. So the micro level sort of latch onto that, which is why sometimes you can get some change. I'm more of a pessimist in that regard, particularly because I see around me on different social media platforms the kinds of coverage, the visual representations that are there of Palestinians. And yet, you know, what we're facing right now is a kind of naked raw power that, despite any kind of soft power of those images, refuses to surrender. So I wanted to ask you about all of these things and more when I get a chance to speak to you, but more in terms of like, how do you make sense of these echo chambers and the fact that you have these kinds of contestations that are going on and yet nothing really comes out, and that the notion of, you know, even something that I've argued, that you can have a movement from the ground up that can lodge and dislodge. But at the same time, it's with these NGOs that actually facilitate and harness that. Thank you.
Just to be a bit more optimistic, I always think in terms of micro-displacement. And like the hope is that by decentering our gaze and having more attention for actors that are not the actors at the micro and meso level, the complexity and the ways things are represented are gonna be subject to micro displacement that in the long term are gonna, I know we need the massive changes and not micro ones, but this is the possibility that I think it's possible now.
Please join me in thanking Alice Massari for her excellent talk. I don't know where Liz went, so I'm going to do Liz's part. This is the conclusion of the formal part of today's introduction or opening of the event, but the informal part is yet to begin. And we have some treats lined up for you, so please don't go home. Step outside and enjoy the show, enjoy a glass of wine, and some beautiful reception together, and we'll talk. Thank you.